And in order to, and this is one of the greatest blessings that Allah has ever given to mankind, not only to Muslims. So therefore, Muslims owe it, subhanallah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to, celebrate it in a way that will indicate the fact that they are quite grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also they want to mark, they want to make it very clear that even though they may not have the appropriate words to express their gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this great blessing, but they must do it in a way that at least everybody will understand that the essence of it is thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
You understand? And therefore, in order for it not to defeat its objective, like I'm saying, it has to be done in an Islamic way.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We first of all like to congratulate all Muslims or humanity in general for, as you have said, Eid al-Adha or the Tobaski, as known in Wolof. Tobaski dates back, it's a long history, but the history dates back to the father of the prophets, Abraham alayhi salatu wasalam. When you look at the Islam, it's a chain of communication from Adam to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there are a number of very important prophets. One of them is Ibrahim, and he is referred to as the father of prophets. Ibrahim's life is very, very interesting. One of them is that he lived for a long, long time without being blessed with a child until the time when he became hopeless. But then Allah's power, Allah came with a blessing that he was going to have a baby after 60 or 70 years of age. And that baby was Ismail. But part of the trial of Prophet Abraham was that he saw in his dream that he had to slaughter his own son, the son that came after a long time, after a long prayer. Part of the trial that he that he had a dream that he had to slaughter that very important son to him. So, but Prophet's dream is reality. So he communicated that to Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, and Ismail, who himself was a prophet, a would-be prophet, also agreed that, Ya Abati, my dad, just do what is commanded to you, and that is the dream. Abraham, of course, was a prophet. Hadn't been a prophet, he would have interpreted the dream otherwise. But as a prophet, he would have to implement. So the day of implementation, and his own son also was ready. That's the day when everything was ready, and the knife was there, serpent, ram, of course, was brought, and everything was ready to implement. Then Allah brought a ram as a ransom to take the place of that, the Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. So that's significant part of history, which is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam repeating, or it became a sunnah from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are many sunnahs, or at least many things that we do in Islam that is very much connected and linked to Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. One of them is Tobaski, and one of them is Safa wal Marwa. All these are very much linked to the history of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. So when people do it, I would like also them to understand the history and make sure that it's a worship, but a worship that is very much linked not only to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam.
Authenticating the Sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is a good one. But however, slaughtering a ram is not mandatory, as some try to imbibe it as a religious obligation.
Sacrifice is a very important component in what we call worship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed the way that we worship him. Sometimes he says establish prayer, you have fasting, but sacrifice also represent a very important element in the history of worship. So even before Abraham, people also used to sacrifice. And then Ibrahim was asked to sacrifice his son to get nearer to Allah. But then the son was lucky, Abraham was lucky. The ummah of the Prophet also was lucky. Otherwise, some of the historians also are saying that had that been the case, then each one of us would have been asked to sacrifice his own son. So it means that we are lucky that there was a ransom of this ram. So this ram really caused us, at least helped us, rescued many of us. So, but then that history is also built on a deeper history of the importance of sacrifice. When you read the Quran, Surah Al-Kawthar, Allah is saying, Inna a'ataynaka al-Kawthar, fasalli li rabbika wanhar. You see, verily or indeed we have given you Kawthar. Establish prayer for your Lord and then sacrifice. So the issue of sacrificing to spill blood just to get near to Allah represent an important element of the components of what we call worship in Islam. So that is why when people do it, let them also do it based on their understanding that it is a commandment of God, which is linked to a very important history of Islam, of Islam, which is to link Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Prophet Ibrahim. It is Sunnah. It is Sunnah. You see, sometimes due to the fact that many of us overdo it, due to the fact that in this country it is now becoming a custom, it is becoming more of tradition, it is becoming more of a requirement that is blown out of proportion. Exactly. People have to understand that it is Sunnah. The importance of Sunnah lies in the fact that when you do it, you are able to do it, you are rewarded. When you don't do it, because you are not able to do it, you are not punished. So that is but nowadays, you have seen that there are many people who burden themselves. For example, especially those who have many wives. If you have about 4 to 3 wives, and you can only afford one of them, then each and every wife would like you to at least slaughter a ram for her. That you cannot. And I think as a man, as a woman, as a husband, as a wife, understanding should be reached that it is a Sunnah. Once you have one ram for the family, the Sunnah is also performed. Rather than taking loan here and there to perform what seems to be an obligatory or mandatory, which is not mandatory, and at the end of the day, you are indebted to here and there, and then you are exposed to a lot of unnecessary disgrace. I think people also have to understand that it is Sunnah. Sunnah meaning that you do it, then you are rewarded, but don't overdo it, or don't do it when you are not able to do it. Or once you are able to do one, make sure that the family, your 3 wives and your daughters, they kill and slaughter a ram just to make them enjoy that particular day. But to blow it out of proportion as it is happening, I think is something that we have to revisit, because many families are breaking because of that, and it doesn't need to happen. So I think people have to understand Sunnah and understand the limits of Sunnah without blowing it out of proportion. I think this is very important too.
The most important thing is one must be able to afford it financially, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of geographical location, regardless of any other consideration. The most important thing, it is a very, like Raja says, it's a very strong Sunnah, tradition, very emphatic Sunnah. And when in the science of Islamic law, when you are told that something is a Sunnah mu'akkada, or an emphatic Sunnah, it goes to a level which is very near to obligation, even though according to ulama it may not be it's not a mandatory duty. So insofar as you can afford it, you must do it. But Islam is a religion of mercy.
Yes.
In a home or in a family, instead of everybody in the family doing it,
yes,
the head of the family can do one and then intend to do it on his behalf and on behalf of the entire family, and that will be accepted. Of course, unless for those that are mature enough who can afford it, then in that case it will be required of them to do it, because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the tradition has it, initially slaughtered 2 rams, one for himself, one on behalf of the entire ummah of Islam, those of us that cannot afford it. But anybody who can afford it becomes required of him or her to make sure that he does it. So that is how it goes. It's a very important tradition of Islam.
Muslims must commemorate the day in conformity with Islamic teachings.
The day, we're expecting it to be on Friday. You see, days and months are chosen by Allah. And although it is Allah also who tells us how to commemorate the day, how to perform the thing, not we telling ourselves. And a lot of customs